Before the following individuals made an impact on America through the Hudson River School and the transformation of traditional American artistic and language style, literature, art, and music came directly from Europe, specifically England. American Romanticism marked the first great literary development in America. Within the period, there are strong themes of emotion and individual senses and beliefs, such as the idea of goodness in men, but nationalism was also extremely important. The movement spanned from 1820 to 1860. However, the true glory years were from 1850 to 1855, a short period of time because of conflicts preceding the Civil War. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow is the first American writer to use native themes, focusing primarily on the landscape, history, and overall setting. He also formed an American literary and cultural identity. One of his most famous works is Paul Revere's Ride, showing an emphasis on nationalism. Longfellow was influenced by Washington Irving's sketchbook, but we'll get back to that later.
Any published poetry by Emily Dickinson was made public without her consent or being attributed to her. She lived in almost total isolation, and her poetry reflects her loneliness. Inspired by metaphysical poets of 17th century England and the setting of her upbringing, Puritan New England, Dickinson used her rhythmic words to not only express the strong emotions common in the era, but to impact American Romanticism in the 19th century overall. She challenged pre-existing notions and questioned the unanswerable, such as the meaning of life. The subject matter of her poems ranges from nature to religion, with her later works focusing on difficulty and the necessity of faith.
John Greenleaf Whittier was an American abolitionist poet who was influenced by his Northeastern Quaker faith. His most important poem, read December 1833 at the Philadelphia Convention that formed the Anti-Slavery Society, helped bring more attention to the abolitionist movement. Known as America's Homer, Virgil, Dante, or Shakespeare, Walt Whitman is regarded as one of the most significant transcendentalist poets of the 19th century. His most famous work is Leaves of Grass, which celebrates democracy, nature, love, and friendship, and found beauty even in death. He was inspired by his travels through the American frontier and Ralph Waldo Emerson. Stylistically innovative, Whitman ignored regular meter and rhyme patterns and was influenced by biblical poetry. He had mixed reception in America, but was received favorably in Europe. Nathaniel Hawthorne was monumental in the Romantic movement and became a lead writer of his time by emphasizing individual responsibility, emotional expression, and American originality. He is most well known for The Scarlet Letter, in which he explored legalism, sin, and guilt in Puritan Boston. He was also part of the New England Intellectual Society that included Louisa May Alcott, Henry David Thoreau, and Ralph Waldo Emerson. Henry David Thoreau was a transcendentalist and an abolitionist most famous for Walden, written during his 2 years in solitude in a cabin by Walden Pond. His work continued the focus on man's spiritual quest to find harmony within himself and nature. His works have inspired Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi. Edgar Allan Poe was a poet, writer, and critic that made a profound impact on American and international literature. One of the originators of both horror and detective fiction, he was the lead architect of the modern short story. Primarily focused on the effect of the style and structure of the language, Poe is best known for Fall of the House of Usher, Tell-Tale Heart, and The Raven. Herman Melville wrote fictional philosophical allegories, his most famous work being Moby Dick, written in 1851. Modern scholars consider it to be a masterpiece, but it was dismissed in its time. He was a transcendentalist because he analyzed humanity and its place in nature. Washington Irving is best known for short stories such as The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Rip Van Winkle, both of which were part of a compilation known as the Sketchbook. He helped writers by arguing for stronger laws to protect writers from copyright infringement. James Fenimore Cooper was an American fiction writer whose most famous novel, The Spy, used a Revolutionary War setting and introduced several uniquely American characters. He also started a series of influential sea novels. The genre, as developed by Cooper, became a powerful force for spiritual and moral exploration. He was also part of the New York City intellectual life. Francis Parkman romantically described the history of the British and French exploration and the conflict in North America. Parkman's view of the Native Americans as savages helped form what became the prevailing sentiment of the time and may have even led to the downfall of the Native American society. George Bancroft is known as the father of American history. He wrote a 10-volume study of the origins and developments of American society, from colonial formations to the struggle for independence. Influenced by nationalistic German schools of historians, Bancroft approached subjects philosophically. He manipulated them to fit his preconceived idea that the American political and social system represented the climax reached in humanity's quest for the perfect state. Many thought that Bancroft was overly influenced by Jacksonian attitudes at the time, which can explain the large amounts of political and military narratives that ignored economic and social factors. William H. Prescott was another American historian. However, he was interested in Spain and the Spanish Empire. Known as one of the first great historians, Prescott recorded the history of Mesoamerica. Thomas Cole founded the Hudson River School, prompting and encouraging an art movement that was mostly focused on landscape painters and American originality. His most famous landscape was the Oxbow. The most famous of his allegorical paintings was the 5-part series, The Course of an Empire. Asher Brown Durand was an engraver who gradually shifted to landscape painting because he was encouraged by his friend Thomas Cole. His sketches of the Catskill, Adirondack, and White Mountains are the embodiment of his Hudson River School style. After Cole's death, he was recognized as the leader of American landscape painting. Albert Bierstadt was one of the most internationally honored artists of the 19th century. In 1853, he went to Germany to study at the Dusseldorf Art Academy, gradually becoming ambitious, technically proficient, and renowned throughout the world. Upon his return to New Bedford, Connecticut, Bierstadt quickly became the city's most prominent artist. He organized a large exhibition in 1858 which brought him international attention. He was one of the first landscape painters to paint Western society. He began to attract criticism in the 1860s for the uneven quality of his work and his stagey effects.
Frederick Edwin Church was a landscape painter of the Hudson River School and studied under Thomas Cole. He plunged into the national scene with 7-foot-wide Niagara. His fame allowed him to make 2 expeditions to South America and show at the New York Exhibition, the most popular display of a single artwork, The Heart of the Andes, in the Civil War.
Fitzhugh Lane was an American Hudson River painter who mostly painted marine landscapes, especially Cape Ann. He was known for a subtle use of gleaming light, a style that was very popular in the 19th century known as Luminism. John James Audubon continued this appreciation of nature by creating The Birds of America, a book of 435 illustrated images of every bird then known in the United States. He helped start the idea that humanity should not just use nature, but should also know it.